What's up, guys? Welcome back to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Coinbase stock, ticker symbol COIN, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Monday, February 26th. So you guys, Coin stock here on Friday finished the day down $4.93 a share, minus 2.88%. Listen, it is down just about a point, 98 cents after hours. Understand, as you'll commonly hear me say when we're doing these videos here, after hours movement, you absolutely have to take it with a grain of salt, because there's your culprit right there. Volume is so incredibly low. And listen, when volume is that low, we just have to take it with a grain of salt, because really the most definitive moves happen when volume is high, right? So let's take a look here at Coin, starting on the intraday 1 minute chart. By the way, if you guys want me to, cover Coinbase stock every day, I'm covering a few different stocks right now, and I have a list that I cover every single day because I know that the audience enjoys me doing so. If Coinbase is one that you'd like me to add to that list, please let me know in the comment section. That feedback is tremendously helpful. And if there's enough interest out of you guys, I'll be very happy to continue covering this name every day. Okay, so let's take a look here. You guys know that I'm a scalper at heart, so I am always, just briefly here, looking at how can I look to generate revenue around a core position? Are there any setups with edge? I mean, I'm alerting the setups that I'm looking at on a daily basis. You guys can check that out, the first link in the pinned comment if you'd like to. Of course, you can just learn how to trade on your own for free if you prefer. It's absolutely doable. You don't have to spend any money if you don't want to. And if you look here, there actually was a repeat offender setup on Coin here on Friday. And you can see here that the only issue that I'm originally thinking when I look at this is, okay, well, is the channel width wide enough? And it actually was here, and that trade would have worked out beautifully. Personally, I happened to miss it. I was off trading a different stock that was very in play on Friday, but that would have been a beautiful trade, almost a textbook repeat offender. So I'm going to be watching for some more of those come Monday if we end up seeing some clean setups like that. By the way, these blue chips that aren't particularly in play on any particular day, right? That's not a dig on Coinbase. 99% of stocks are not going to be in play on any given day, meaning it's harder to gain edge in them as an intraday trader. But some setups like this one, I've tested this setup now in really every variation of market environment. I've tested it, and it has edge as long as the setup itself is clean, and it has edge in, I have found personally, any stock that presents the setup, even if the stock itself is not in play that day. But listen, intraday mentality aside, let's move on here and take a look from a day-to-day perspective, starting with the 5-minute chart. So you can see here we popped to 170 and then faded and then recovered, consolidated into the close to finish the day down about 2.88%. However, if we look at the 30-minute, you can see here that a lot of that actually happened in pre-market on a Friday. But back to the 5-minute, what I want to look at here is the volume profile, right? You guys will notice that if you continue to watch these videos, which I hope you do, I hope you find them valuable, but I hope you find that I'm providing you value is a better way to put that. This is a little ritual that we're doing every day. I'm looking at the volume profile of the stock on the 5-minute because what I want to see, or what I'm looking for, is any obvious volume pumps that correlate with a big move in stock price. Okay, so let's take a look here. You can see, I want to see this big V and recovery. And you'll notice here that there was actually slightly higher volume to the bearish side. But listen, it's not unexpected to see that at all. Because contextually here, in 20 minutes? In the 20 minutes or so that occurred, it was much more of an aggressive move. It was actually a slightly smaller move than this green recovery, but it was more aggressive. And typically downside moves, you might see elevated volume when compared to a similar move to the green side. But bulls, just understand, because our whole goal here is I suppose to understand our own sentiment, our own bias. But what is it really? It's to understand the psychology of the enemy, so to speak. That's arguably more important. I would argue it's quite a bit more important. So bulls, understand that the bears, they're probably, some of them at least, a lot of them, are going to look at this and say, yep, the stock recovered, but we really won that move. Okay, bulls, just understand, some bears are going to look at that and think just that. All right, let's move on here to the 30-minute. This is where things start to get really good. These are levels that I'm watching coming into Monday, the psychological self-fulfilling prophecy levels of the 50 period and the 200 period moving averages. We'll do the 30-minute, the 4-hour, and eventually the most important, the daily. But here on the 30-minute chart to start, so from a bullish perspective, really what I'm looking for, guys, you can see that we're about 1.4% away from that 50 period moving average and about 4% away from that 200 period moving average. So the most immediately relevant from a bullish perspective, I want to see that 50 period, that white line, get reclaimed. Day to day, that is the most contextual ask out of the 30-minute. I want to see that 50 period get reclaimed as a support. And hey, if Coinbase has a monster day and we reclaim that 200 period, I won't be complaining. Bears, what you're going to want to see here is going to be, ideally, if we see a retest of that 50 period, a rejection hard off and a fade downside, ideally really through the lows of Friday. All right. And you would really want to see this 50 period start curling downside and pushing, or adding more so, a trending downside psychological barrier to the stock is what the bears would want to see there. All right, moving on here to the 4-hour, you can see that 50 period is incredibly in play, and we are essentially right up against it. Stock's at about 165, and that is just around 162.30. So bulls here, if we see a retest of that, okay, if we see a downside move and a retest of that, going to want to see a hard bounce off of that 50 period. Bears, one of your primary, I would say, objectives come Monday here is going to be a downside break of that 50 period on the 4-hour, because, you know, we did come down and test that and bounce heavily. You know, that's likely, I would say, part of the psychological reason why we bounced so heavily off that region, like back on the 1-minute and 5-minute chart we saw, right? We were comparing volume. You see here, we hit the 50 period on the 4-hour. Listen, I mean, yeah, it's all psychology. It's all a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is not magic. This is humans, funds, and algorithms making decisions based on the obvious indicators that everybody else are also watching, or is also watching. Now, the most important chart of all is always going to be the daily. Paints the most clear image, and it's kind of hard to confuse if you really dumb down our thinking a little bit and think, okay, the most obvious story is the one I want to pay attention to. So what is the most obvious story from a day-to-day context? Well, for me, I'm looking at the range of 160 to 170, and to me, it's screaming how obvious it is. Okay, so that leaves us with 3 psychological areas. Bulls, downside test of 160, want to see a hard bounce. 165, ideally want to see us hold above 165 for a retest upside, and ideally eventually a reclaim above 170. All right, bears, any upside test of 170, you want to see it reject hard. 165, get down beneath and stay beneath. 160, ideally head down for a test and a break down through, claiming 160 as a new resistance. All right, pretty simple here. Implied volatility on coin, you can see here, is currently actually moving down to the lower end of the range compared to the last few months. That's going to open up more ideal conditions for a lot of options buyers looking to purchase new contracts. Okay, understand though, if you bought contracts more like mid-February, you've likely experienced a little bit of Ivy crush. This right here, that would be your culprit. Now let's finish up here by taking a look at what was the bias in the options chain back on Friday. You can see it's pretty heavy here. 183,000 total contracts traded on coin on Friday. That is a pretty big sample size, but look at the ratio here. 131,800 calls, 51,500 puts, more than double the call side bias compared to put side. All right, but you know, we're not done. We can break it down by time frame. The 0 to 20 delta range, 61,000 calls, 25,000 puts, heavy short-term speculation call side bias as well. Now you look down here, let's look at this. Every single other delta range is also leaning call side heavy. So that's out of the money, at the money, in the money. On average, shorter term sentiment, more midterm and more long-term, all leaning call side as well. You know, that leads to a heavy overall call side bias on the overall call put ratio. Listen, again, manage your risk. It's number one around here because the options traders, They can, of course, be wrong, but that's what they were telling us here on Friday. Listen, if you got value out of that video, please subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate it. My goal is to hit 2,000 by market open on Monday, so I'm excited to see if we can hit that, but it won't happen without your guys' help, of course. And if you guys would, and I'm kind of taking a poll here, if you'd like me to cover Coinbase stock on a daily basis, let me know in the comments section. Okay, and again, if there's enough interest, I'll be happy to do so. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.